You know how great it is to be an American and how patriotic we all are and how proud we are to live in a country that takes care of its people, who feel like they can really accomplish their goals in life, who do not feel like they're just cordoned off into working spaces that really serve somebody else's interests rather than their own. And then even then, the compensation they get for that job isn't high enough or is too often to like really spend time at home and spend time with family or loved ones or just fucking out and about or just alone, man, or just doing whatever. You're just, constantly toiling. Luckily, we don't live in that country, and we are patriots, because if this was a real country, this would be really serious stuff. This would be, if this is a real country, I would be maybe more worried, but I'm going to be honest with you, because it's not, because it's a great country, and I've been told it's a great country my whole life, I'm actually a little jaded about this whole thing, so I don't really, emotionally, who knows, right? Emotionally, cool. I'm not, that fired up about this. That said, I'm happy, okay? I'm happy about this. The Dems, the reason I'm not fired up about this is because the Democrats and liberals in general, just liberalism, just the concept of being a liberal, where you, have answers to questions like, hey, should we be racist? And a leftist is like, obviously no, and here's why. And a liberal is like, obviously no. And then you're like, but you know why, right? And they're like, it's just sort of distasteful, right? It's not good for my business. And liberals sort of fall apart when you ask them why they believe anything. Anyway, AOC is not a liberal. She's more of a progressive, I would say, sock dem. And it was just a good thing. She has some critics out there, but any politician who is not a liberal and is more towards the left is good for me, and I don't care. She doesn't have to be perfect. She's not even my representative. She is, though, one of them that does stuff from time to time. So I do like taking action towards who is obviously a pair of corrupt judges. You could say more about the others and every judge that's come before for a long time. But these two specifically are just so fucking corrupt and obviously causing a lot of problems. So this is good. Anyway, that's my preamble to AOC introducing articles of impeachment to Justice Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas. And man, but this country could be so much better than it is, but the system is just fucked. The whole system's fucked. And so what we really need is to not fall into fascism so that we can vote in the future on reform issues to really reorganize this. Fascism really descends shit into chaos. It's pretty bad. So we should avoid that. Also, side note, while we're talking, I've seen some chatter today. It the Dem base itself is kind of ready to move on from Joe Biden. The high level Dems in Washington are kind of off Joe Biden as well. And so it really seems like he might be kind of off soon. But we'll see. Even Chuck Schumer. I've seen this. Who knows? Liberals are piss ants who never fucking stand for anything. And this is always their problem. So I'm hoping that you just stand for it. Make a change. Put fucking Kamala Harris and some other person on the ticket. I don't give a fuck. Pete Buttigieg can come. I don't care. Let them walk all over this fucker, and let's just, we'll be energized. We'll be like, okay, they're competent, and we'll just move on. We'll just move the fuck on. We'll deal with liberals for, 20 to 50 years as we move. I want liberals to be my main political opponents, okay? Can we get to a point? This is a bigger preamble. Can we get to a point where liberals are the biggest, threat to any sort of politics or whatever? That would be fantastic, okay? These are the people that we should be arguing with. That would be lovely. Oh man, you guys want to take this out of a market, but think about businesses. And we'll be like, well, I don't care about businesses. And eventually, slowly, over time, you just change things for the better. So the Supreme Court judge, two of them, I guess, two Supreme Court judges are getting impeached. Here's this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce articles of impeachment against Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Anthony Alito, Jr. Against Justice Thomas, the resolution includes 3 total articles: 1 count of failure to disclose financial income, gifts, reimbursements, property interest liabilities, and transactions, among other information; and 2 counts of refusal to recuse from matters concerning his spouse's legal and financial interests before the court. The second resolution includes the following impeachment articles against Justice Alito.
Those are great.
1 count of refusal to recuse from cases in which he had a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party before the court, and 1 count of failure to disclose financial incomes, gifts, reimbursements, property interests, among other information.
Those are good. Those are good reasons. I agree. Being a fascist is one that I think should be considered also illegal, or just like worth mentioning. It doesn't have to be illegal. It could just be like, hey, and also he sucks. This guy sucks in general. Okay, bad guy.
Mr. Speaker, nomination and appointment to the Supreme Court is one of the highest privileges and most consequential responsibilities of our nation.
So they oust 2 judges. Well, the goal would be to change them before that.
Such an appointment
But who fucking knows, dude?
is uniquely insulated in its power. Confirmation to the court is a lifetime appointment whereby justices are entrusted with decisions that...
The worst thing that could happen... Okay. Worst thing that could happen... Possible? Hell world? They successfully impeach these 2. It takes until, like, the month of the election. Joe Biden dies the night before the election. 2 open seats. Donald Trump wins. They didn't let Obama appoint justices in like 2 early years. That was a little different, but maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Just do it. This is what I'm saying. Just stop being pussies and just fucking do it. Yeah, they should be able to just get that done.
powerfully shape the nation as well as the lives of every American.
Like, can we be a serious fucking country? There's so much of the Constitution and the bullshit written in it that, like, the founding fathers were like, people will respect this. People will be good and just and virtuous. Meanwhile, some of us own slaves. Like, fucking shut up. We should rewrite this shit. I propose a new constitution. Okay? Constitution to American Boogaloo. I like the Bill of Rights, although I'm sure we could probably amend them to be better. But I like an idea of a Bill of Rights. Anyway, that's never going to happen. Although if for some reason you just, without me trying, everyone writes me in the ballot, like in a movie or something, I'll do that. That's probably a movie, right? Write in. Some random Joe makes a joke on a fucking TV show, and everyone writes him in for president and he wins. That's a Lifetime movie.
For this reason and others, the Constitution rightfully and explicitly holds justices to even higher standards than members of Congress or even the president.
That's good. Also, I don't think the Republicans care, and also, for context, they had been deliberating this for a while beforehand, and like fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene was up there like, this is a travesty, and no one cares. I think this is important. Hopefully this gets done, but who knows? Who fucking knows, dude?
Section 1 of Article 3 of...
Bro, can you imagine if they just sprung Bernie on us, though? They wouldn't. They wouldn't do it. Unfuck the Bernie situation. He's old, though, and they would just keep going after the old stuff. That's why I actually think a VP ticket would make sense, but they probably wouldn't do that. They'd probably do a liberal Kamala Buttigieg. Kamala and Pete.
Of the Constitution commands federal justices to hold their offices during good behavior.
Ooh, double first husbands? Sheesh.
In addition to its clauses barring...
They fall in love?
Treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. And Congress has exercised its power to reinforce this higher standard of the judiciary before. This body has impeached and removed 8 federal judges for transgressions ranging from evading income tax and perjury to intoxication on the bench and abandoning the office to join the Confederacy. Perhaps
I appreciate leaving that in there. That's that's nice.
Most critical to the legitimacy of the institution, these judicial standards require justices to recuse themselves in any proceeding where their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. In other words...
Might reasonably be questioned. And they're like, well, it's not reasonably questioned. these Enlightenment motherfuckers who wrote this shit, like, they had such faith in people like, oh, they'll get smarter. Surely they'll all be well-read someday.
If a person could reasonably believe that the legitimacy of a justice's judgment could be, or be perceived to be, compromised...
Or be perceived to be? Sheesh. That's pretty broad, though. Or be perceived to be? Like, that's...
due to their personal involvement in the case or its parties, the standard is clear. The justice must recuse. They are required to recuse. That stringent and sacred standard exists for the good of the ruling, the judiciary, and the country.
It's crazy. So there's this thing that happens where it takes like really intellectual people and hoity-toity, like probably rich guys in that period of time. It kind of takes that kind of guy to be like, I'm going to write down the Constitution. I have ideas about this. Yes, let me organize a country. And while I wear my fucking, like, you know, my floofy little coat and stuff. And, you know, so on the one hand, you kind of, you like need that person to, in any setting, like even now, you need like an educated person to like put together that thing. But you also need the perspective to be like, oh, but like a working class person, you know, not someone that has my means, especially in this time where we're so stratified. Like, you have to have the foresight of being able to like give them things that they're going to need to be able to like be well off. And it's like they, you know, they're out of touch. So it's like it's the contradiction of needing the perspective of someone. And some politicians throughout the years have been able to have that. You know, they were poor and then they weren't or whatever. But like Jimmy Carter comes to mind. But a lot of it's nepotism, man. So they don't. And this is why we're in a fucking like oligarchy, borderline kleptocracy. If Trump administration gets in, I mean, that's just, I mean.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that everyday Americans, independent of party or ideology, can reasonably conclude that Justices Thomas and Alito's years-long pattern of misconduct and failure to recuse in cases bearing their clear personal and financial involvement represents an abuse of power and threat to our democracy fundamentally incompatible with continued service on our nation's highest court. For the good of the institution and the nation, absent resignation, they must be removed. The proof is undeniable, and here I will lay it out. Justice Clarence Thomas, for decades now, has carried on a close, financially entangled personal relationship with real estate billionaire Harlan Crow.
Yeah, we've been reading about this and like seeing it on social media and stuff for a while, news sites. This is the most corrupt shit ever, dude. This is so corrupt. It gets crazier too, though. He's for 20 years, this guy has been courted by the Russian government. 20 years. There's a whole thing here. I'll show you. The Clarence Thomas situation. Supreme Court Justice Thomas was wined to dine in Russia and even flew in a private helicopter to Yusupov Imperial Palace in St. Petersburg. Thomas did not disclose this information. 99% chance Putin has had compromise on Thomas since 2003. Look at all this. Likely undisclosed gifts from Harlan Crow, and this is all just him. All different stuff. So judges can't have friends? Judges cannot take gifts from their billionaire friends, no.
It is of material importance to the American people to note that Justice Thomas's relationship to the billionaire only began after Thomas's powerful appointment to our nation's highest court.
Right.
The cash, goods, and services Justice Thomas received over the years include large loan balance cancellations, tuition payments for family, and vacations in private jets and yachts worth up to $500,000 alone.
He's buying them. This is clear.
In total, Justice Thomas appears to have received more than $1.5 million worth in goods, cash equivalents, and services from Mr. Crow. And that is just what we know of. But truthfully,
this is very Russian. This is like how Russian politics works. Like, you'll have billionaire people, often warlords now, that just like own stuff. Like Putin is that. He is the most money in the world, most likely. Or at least that's what they say.
Really know the total sum of contributions Thomas received from Crow. Justice Thomas not only accepted these contributions while Mr. Crow had business in front of the court, but he accepted them in secret, failing for years and years to report them. Yet Thomas did report smaller gifts during this time, demonstrating a clear understanding of his legal obligation to report. Would a reasonable American question that receiving lavish gifts from Mr. Crow might lead Justice Thomas to have a bias towards his, quote, friend with business before the court? Without a doubt, yes.
That's crazy.
But did Justice Thomas recuse? No. Now take Justice Samuel Alito, who has no shortage of billionaire associates.
And of course they're not elected, right?
Of his own. After billionaire Paul Singer gave Justice Alito a luxury fishing trip.
Literally, billionaires are just owning the government. That's all that's happening.
On a private jet, a contribution that was also hidden from the public and the court. Justice Alito not only refused to recuse,
out in the open,
but changed his mind regarding his gracious host's case. Just a short time after accepting the lavish undisclosed trip from Singer, Alito joined the court in reversing its previous position and took up Singer's case. He did not recuse. Justice Alito also refused to recuse in the case itself, ultimately leading to a ruling that netted Singer $2.4 billion.
Wow.
And that ruling did not just...
Cool. That's cool. They're crooks. They're fucking crooks.
...enrich Singer. It also structurally...
Oh, and the prisons are privatized? That's so crazy.
...tilted the playing field further away from working people and towards the vulture funds, siphoning money and resources away from the communities that need them most. Could a reasonable American question whether or not Justice Alito could have acted impartially in this case, given his personal relationship with Singer? Absolutely. In January 2021, after the former president of the United States incited an insurrection on the Capitol in this chamber to interfere with the results of the US election, Justice Samuel Alito and his wife flew an upside-down American flag, a symbol of solidarity with the attack, outside their home. 2 years later, they publicly displayed outside their home yet another incendiary symbol, a flag associated with extreme right-wing Christian nationalism.
Oh. Can we get rid of the Christian, power structure, please? Just tax all the churches to smithereens. If you want to have a church, that's great, but it's a business. You're selling a product, and it's just normal. And you can continue to operate, however, and slowly perish. The parish will perish. It's a racket, man. It's obvious. It's obviously a racket.
Justice Alito maintains that his wife, Martha Ann Alito, is the only one responsible for the flags. But common sense maintains that such a close and incendiary revelation requires recusal by the justice from January 6th related cases.
Yeah, man.
Despite the overwhelming appearance of a conflict of interest, Justice Alito refused to recuse himself from cases surrounding the 2020 election and questions of the former president's legal immunity in the attack. Would a reasonable person question that Justice Alito's conduct exhibits and demonstrates reasonable concern for bias in these cases? Absolutely, and without question.
She's doing a good job here.
And finally, Justice Thomas, who is married to Virginia Thomas, a financially and personally involved operative in the Stop the Steal movement and Capitol attack, also joined opinions in these cases.
Yeah,
even as clear evidence mounted that not only was his wife fully committed to overthrowing the results of a fair election, but she was actively lobbying members of the Trump administration attempting to do just that. The questions before the court had unquestionable implications for Thomas's wife and consequently Thomas himself, making his refusal to recuse one of the most shocking examples of conflict of interest in the court's history. And crucially, it was both Justices Thomas and Alito who cast critical votes in the ruling. It now follows that because of Alito's and Thomas's refusals to recuse, everyday Americans cannot, should not, and will not believe that these justices, and consequently the court they serve, is working to uphold the Constitution and put the country ahead of their own individual self-interests.
Exactly. Totally agree with this. This has been a very good presentation. This is a good introduction and reasoning for articles of impeachment. I support it fully. I don't get a say in any of it, but I support it fully. I think we should vote for Supreme Court justices. Simple as. They should have 9-year rotations. We vote for Supreme Court justices.
Americans will not believe that the court interpreted the law independent of profit for themselves and their newly termed friends. Without action against these blatant violations, reasonable Americans have and will.
One term, you get one 9-year rotation. There's 9 justices, you get 9 years. That's it. In and out. And you obviously, you can't take money. You can't how seriously they take like jurors and stuff, like not being political and stuff. Like, I realize people are going to exist and have lives, and you're going to have political opinions. But as a judge, I think there should be like a political test. Like, these people should have to tell us what they think about things.
Will continue to lose faith in the court itself. Reasonable Americans will and do believe that Justices Thomas and Alito are prone and subject to corruption, that the institution failing to punish them is broken, and that consequently their impeachment is a constitutional imperative and our congressional duty. The abuses of power committed by Justice Thomas and Justice Alito are precisely the types of corruption that the framers understood was an existential threat to our democracy. Mm-hmm. Instances like these and misconduct like that of Alito's and Thomas's are precisely why the framers gave us the tool of impeachment. Corruption without consequence infects all it touches. And that is why this body, Congress, has a constitutional and moral obligation to hold these justices accountable, to maintain the integrity of our courts, and to uphold the standards of the judiciary and our institutions. Lastly, we cannot ignore the most important material consequences of this court's unchecked corruption and its resulting influence: the suffering of the American people. We cannot ignore and pretend that this corruption is wholly unrelated to the millions of pregnant Americans now suffering and bleeding out in emergency rooms under the court's unleashing of extreme abortion bans across the United States, which was a key political priority of these undisclosed benefactors and
huge rise in infant mortality. Huge.
Shadow organizations surrounding Alito and Thomas's misconduct. Nor can we ignore the millions of Americans now suffering hours-long wait times in the hot sun, often without water, just to cast a ballot, also a direct result of this corrupt court's gutting of the Voting Rights Act, allowing the closing of polling sites across the country. You see, neither these justices nor their shadowy benefactors have to answer to the parents of developmentally delayed children about their decision to gut the power of the EPA and the entire administrative state with it. But they do have to answer to us, the Congress, whom these people, the American people, have elected and entrusted to protect them, to serve them, and to defend the well-being of our democracy. Mr. Speaker, I am here today presenting these articles of impeachment not because I am a Democrat and not because I am blind to its odds in a Republican-led chamber. I present them because it is the right thing to do. And while our framers perhaps may not have envisioned someone like me in this seat, they absolutely did envision the necessity and value of the impeachment action upon which I seek to advance today. Thank you, and I yield back.
Yeah, I mean, she did great. What can you do? I think it's important too. Who knows what'll fucking happen, dude? Probably nothing. Republicans are all fucking corrupt. So who knows? When does that even take place, man? When does that even get voted on? I'm really grateful for her. Even if she's not 100% perfect, I think she has all the good takes that you'd want. What important issue isn't she? I mean, the only thing I can think of is that, like, right now all the Democrats are being told by leadership to be behind Joe Biden. But like it's coming out that people are not being like they're not that for real about the Joe Biden prospect. You know what I mean?